At this time, I'd like to introduce our speaker, who's a very good friend of mine, Diana M. from the West End area.
Okay, before I get started, I'd like everyone to find a seat and please be quiet because I drove a long fucking way to speak here today. My name is Diane and I'm an addict. And I want to thank the committee for asking me to come down here to speak today. I consider it a privilege and an honor to be able to do this. And I'm just going to wait a few minutes. Can we have a moment of silence to reflect why we're truly here? Okay, like I said, my name is Diane and I'm an addict. And I want to thank Rod for asking me to come here to speak. I was coming anyways. I was bringing my sponsor. She's the 3 o'clock speaker. And I'm filling in for somebody that couldn't make it. And I just wanted to share this, is that I find it really ironic, and for all you young people out there, you know, this is truly a gift. I'm 34 years old, and I'm considered among one of the dinosaurs. I think that's a fucking miracle. You know, I mean, I have 13 years clean. I just celebrated 13 years last Sunday, and I am a true miracle of this program. I was one of those people that walked into this program real angry that I had to be here. I had a lot of court cases that I was trying to beat. And my only motivation when I got here was I just wanted to take care of my court cases, complete this recovery house that I was sentenced to, and I was going to be on my merry way. You know, I really, you know what, the people in the back over there, could you please be quiet? You know, when I first arrived here, getting clean and learning about recovery was the last thing on my mind. My main motivation when I arrived here was, you know, like I said, I had a bunch of court cases that I wanted to take care of, and I was going to be on my merry way. I was 22 years old when I got here, and I certainly didn't feel like I was done using. But I was whipped, I was beat, and I did everything it took to get loaded on a daily basis when I was out there using. And what I'm going to attempt to do today is qualify as an addict and share a little bit about where I come from, and I'm going to share a lot about recovery and how I've been able to stay here for 13 years. Because I really believe that in order to stay here for any length of time, you have to do some work. And I'm not originally from California, and we were talking about that on the way over here. I'm originally from Rhode Island. And, you know, Rhode Island is not a real big state, and it's not big city living. It's a very small town living, and I started using when I was 10 years old, and my connection was my father. You know, my father taught me how to run the streets. My father taught me how to run drugs. My father taught me, you know, everything there was to know about being a dope fiend and running the streets and living to use and using to live. And I'm also an identical twin by birth, and it's very important for me to share about this because my twin sister plays a big part of me getting clean. My twin sister and I, we ran together. We, you know, we did everything together. She knew my secrets. I knew her secrets. And, you know, I had a real sick relationship with my father. You know, and growing up, you know, I really believed that there was like two sides to me. There was a big part of me that I was a big shot amongst all my friends because, you know, we could go over to my father's house and smoke pot and you know, and do whatever. But deep down inside, I always felt like there was something drastically wrong with me. And I was always ashamed about who I was and where I came from. I was always ashamed about the person I was, and I was a pathological liar. I lied about everything. There was nothing about me that was the truth. I was so ashamed about where I came from. And growing up, the only thing that I thought that made me special was that I was a twin. I got a lot of attention being a twin. People would always come up and make these comments about, oh, how cute you guys are, da-da-da-da-da, you look so, you look alike, and da-da-da-da-da. And growing up, I always thought that was the only thing that made me special, and I used to play on that a lot. But anyways, growing up, I was always ashamed about who I was, and I learned early on in life how to lie, to get through things, how to make up stories to make you sit there and listen to me. And one time I went to the World Convention in Toronto a few years ago, and I went to this one workshop, and this lady started sharing about how fantasy was her first drug of choice, and I understood what she was saying. Because I used to fantasize about different lives or different parents or a different, house, and I used to conjure up these stories in my head, and I used to lie all the time. And and when I got to this program, it took me a long time about learning what the truth was and about who I was, and it was just a very slow process. But what got to me, it's like I started using when I was 10, and I was one of those addicts that never really experimented. I was in full-blown addiction from day one. I was one of those addicts that used every single day while I was out there. I was one of those addicts that used until I was oblivious of my surroundings, and I would wake up in the strangest places. And coming to this program and working the steps, I've come to realize that truly what my mission was out there was I was trying to kill every feeling I had. I was incapable of feeling my feelings and living my reality. There was nothing about me that I liked. I walked into the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous and I felt like a big fat zero. And what Narcotics Anonymous has given me is a life beyond my wildest dreams. I got to this program 13 years ago, and it wasn't by accident. Even though I thought I still had some using to do, even though I thought I was too young, I did not get here by mistake. My twin sister and I moved out here to California about 15 years ago. And, the ironic thing is that we thought Rhode Island, and we thought my father was the problem. We thought if we moved out here, that everything would be fine, that we could get a better way of life and maybe straighten up our acts and, and get on with it. And 20 minutes out of the train station in Pasadena, my sister and I were in some dude's house fixing. It was just real clear to me that, that I had a drug problem, but I was so numb that I never even took a look at it, and I had no desire to get clean for a long, long time. What got me to this program is that 15 years ago, like I said, Donna and I pulled up in Pasadena, and a few months into being here in Southern California, my twin sister kept on getting arrested over and over again. Sybil Brand became a revolving door for her. And I remember the last time that she got arrested, she was given an option. And the option was that she could go to jail or she could go to a recovery house. And Donna felt that going to jail was the easier, softer way. And I remember going up and visiting her every single weekend, and I would see the person that I dropped off at the courthouse change right before my eyes. And what I saw was somebody that threw away any hopes or dreams of ever having a better way of life. What I saw was somebody diving right into the lifestyle that is so freely given to us through active addiction. And what I saw was somebody that turned into a very hateful and angry person. And when I picked her up a year and a half later, it was like every single hope and dream that my twin sister ever had was thrown out the window. And 2 weeks after she got out of jail, she died behind this disease. And that's why I wanted to have a moment of silence to reflect on truly why we're here. You know, we're not here to socialize, and, you know, I mean, that's important too. We need to socialize and we need to have a good time. But truly why we're here is that we're trying to recover from active addiction. You know, and my twin sister will never have that freedom or that option. You know, she's one of those addicts that told me that it doesn't get any better and it never changes. She's one of those addicts that have told me that what it says in our literature, that jails, institutions, and death is what we have if we continue on using. Her example showed me that that's exactly what we have coming. You know, and, you know, when she died, I remember sitting in the room and having to identify her, and I was sitting there, and it was like I had a moment of clarity. It was a brief moment of clarity, but it was a moment of clarity. And what that moment was, and I really believe that it was my loving God talking to me, and all it said was that, Diana, if you don't make a change in your life, you will die just like her. And, you know, being a good addict that I was, I immediately found as many drugs as I possibly could, and I tried to stuff these drugs into my body every which way, every orifice, every opening. It didn't matter. What my mission was that I wanted to kill the feelings. You know, I hear a lot of people share about in meetings about, you know, I wanted to commit suicide, or I tried to commit suicide, or I just wanted to die. And, you know, and really what I believe is that we just wanted to kill the feelings. I know that was my experience. You know, and after Donna died, you know, I went on this run, and this run is that I wanted to kill every single feeling I had, because I did not want to feel this. And, you know, and I was also trying very, very hard to deny my own disease, because I saw my disease and I saw where it was taking me in that room when I was sitting there. And what ended up happening is that a year later down the road, I ended up getting arrested over and over again. Sybil Brand became a revolving door for me. And what ended up happening is my last arrest, I was given the same option. You can go do your time, or you can go to a recovery house. And for some reason or another, there was just enough in me when I was sitting in that holding tank where I said, you know what, I want to try something different. Because I remember that day when I was sitting in that emergency room. And I remember the pain that I had. And I remember the moment of clarity that I had sitting in that room. And so just for a brief moment, I was able to muster up enough courage where I said, please, you know, send me to a recovery house. Now, my pitch is not about recovery houses and endorsing recovery houses. I really believe that the recovery house that I went through was a place for me to sit still long enough to hear what the message was. You know, and the message is very fucking clear. The people that don't want to listen is that anybody, no matter where you come from, what drug you use, or how long you use, or how old you are, or how young you are, every single person that walks through the doors of Narcotics Anonymous or any meeting has a chance to recover. And that's why it really angers me when I see people in the back room talking long shit, talking above the speaker, because there might be that newcomer in here that's dying and that wants to hear the message and they can't. And I was coming up here and I said, God, please don't let me have an attitude. You know, so I got to this program, and it's like it was very hard for me to come to these meetings and believe that, you know, all you people were doing was working the 12 steps and that you were staying clean. But what I did was I kept coming back. And what ended up happening is that I was at a meeting, and it was early on in my recovery, and I heard this man share. And what this man shared was that he shared about things that I felt. He shared about how he felt whenever he was loaded, nothing could touch him. He shared about all the places that he ended up in behind his active addiction. And then he started sharing about feelings. And when he started sharing about his feelings, it was the first time in my life that the denial of my disease was broken for probably about 20 minutes. And I sat there in that room, and my mouth dropped open, and I was just sitting there listening to this man share about his feelings. And it just blew my mind. Because that's truly what I was running from, was my feelings. You know, and what the steps of Narcotics Anonymous has done for me, it has given me the tools necessary to be able to walk through anything with dignity. And what I mean by that is that I no longer feel like I have to act out in old ways, you know, even though my disease tells me I should, and why don't I, you know, and the steps have taught me that it's truly possible for us addicts to change everything about us. And not only that, it's that the steps have showed me that I can walk through anything and stay clean. You know, and that has been such a gift for me. You know, recovery has been such a gift. You know, and I'm going to share about some pertinent things that have happened throughout my recovery that have showed me that, that it doesn't matter what you have to go through, you know, that we can stay clean no matter what. And that's what it's about. You know, it's not about, winning a popularity contest. It's not about trying to make all of you my friends. It's about me, this addict, wanting to stay clean one day at a time, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes in order to have quality recovery. Because I really believe that's the only way that we stay here. I don't believe that we can come here and get recovery by osmosis. And if you don't know what that means, what it means is it doesn't rub off. You know, you can't just hang out with the winners. You got to do something about it. You got to work the steps. You got to be of service. You got to reach out to the newcomers. You got to do things like this. Even though, I didn't want to come up here today. I just wanted to come here and listen to some good speakers. You know, it's about me reaching out to the other women in this fellowship and sponsoring them and guiding them through the steps. It's about me giving back to this fellowship that was so freely given to me. And I really believe that the messages and the formula that we get when we walk in, you know, I don't know, but I know in my area when a newcomer walks in, we tell them a few things. 90 meetings in 90 days, get yourself a sponsor, reach out, raise your hand so people can get to know you, you know, use your sponsor, work the steps, and if you do those things, it's possible to stay clean. You know, and the same things that I learned as a newcomer are the same things that I have to do today in order to stay clean. That doesn't change. What changes for me is that every single time I sit down and write on a step, I get a deeper understanding of what this is all about, and how my defects work, and how I react, and how I can truly change everything about me. You know, and what I'm going to share about is how I've been able to learn about spiritual principles like forgiveness. I'm going to share a little bit about how you can walk through anything without being an asshole, that it's truly possible for us to work the principles in our lives, and that we don't have to leave a path of destruction behind us. You know, and there's been several things that have happened throughout my recovery that have showed me that. You know, one of them is that, you know, when I first got to this program, I had to start dealing with the feelings that I had about my twin sister dying. And then I also had to start sharing about the feelings that I had about my father and him being an addict, and the you know, the skills that he taught me and the example that he was. And through the process of working the steps on that, I was able to really understand that my father is an addict long before he's my father. And I was truly able to understand and forgive him full-heartedly because I was able to learn how to forgive myself. You know, I had to work on the steps on myself before I could work on any other area. And when I walked in here, I was very ashamed of who I was and where I came from. I was one of those women that, you know, I had sugar daddies in every town. You know, my hustle was to sleep with men or women, it didn't matter, for money or for drugs. And I was one of those women that did whatever it took to get loaded on a daily basis. I degraded myself so badly that when I walked in here, I never thought it was possible that I could actually look in the mirror one day and say, I'm a lady, and I understand, and I know what self-respect feels like. And that's one of the things that I've been able to get around here. is that I can look in the mirror today and I know what it feels like to have self-respect. And I know what it feels like to be treated like a lady, and I truly act like a lady today. You know, and those are just few of the gifts that I've been able to receive. You know, and one thing that I've come to understand is that that in order to receive those gifts, we can't leave 5 minutes before the miracle. So that means we got to be consistent with the sponsor. That means we have to learn about honesty. That means we got to be willing to let go of every secret. And the freedom that I have behind being able to do that is phenomenal. But anyways, you know, I'm getting back to my father. At about 7 years clean, I just got a divorce from my first husband. I was filing bankruptcy. I moved to a brand new area. It was like starting over again. And I decided that I wanted to go see my father. My father lives back east. And I went back east to see my father. And while I was there, you know, I have a little brother. And my little brother just got out of recovery house while I was there on vacation. And I was able to spend a lot of time with Brian. And Brian and I, you know, we spent a lot of time together, and I shared with him my experience, strength, and hope about recovery and what I've been able to get by staying clean. And you know, and he was really scared. He was really scared about staying in Rhode Island with my father because my father was still using. And he was really scared about, you know, learning how to live clean. And I poured out my heart and soul to him. I gave him everything I had. And what ended up happening is my little brother relapsed. And I'm not sure why, and I guess I'm not supposed to understand why. But through that relapse, what ended up happening is my little brother hung himself. And what I was able to understand through that was that I am powerless over my addiction and anybody else's. And one thing else that I was able to understand, it doesn't matter how powerful a speaker is, doesn't matter what kind of message I give to you, it's a choice. Every single one of us sitting in this room has a choice today. And that choice is that you can stay clean, no matter what. You know, and having to be there, and my father, and being strong for him, and burying my brother, and understanding and praying a lot, because I couldn't get to any meetings while I was out there, because, you know, one thing I wanted to share, when I left Rhode Island 15 years ago, my father had 2 gas stations, a beautiful house on the ocean. He was doing quite well financially. And when I went back 10 years later, my father was living in a tent in the middle of a field, you know, in the middle of nowhere. And that's the progression of his disease. You know, and, you know, here I was, just filed bankruptcy, newly divorced, just moved into a new apartment, and here I am having to try to pay for my brother's funeral and, you know, and be there for my father. And it was very, very painful for me. But I learned that, you know, my job, no matter where I'm at emotionally, is to be the best daughter that I possibly can be. And that's with both parents, because I've had to struggle with both of my parents in terms of my relationship with them. And I learned that it was very important for me to try to come from a loving place, and I did the best I could while I was there. And one thing that I never did with my father is I never shut the door. I always let him know that I was there for him. But when I left Rhode Island to come back to California, I had to tell my father that if he wasn't willing or able to participate in my life as my father, that please don't call me anymore, because it's way too painful to watch him die. And what happened was about 2.5 years ago, I got a phone call from my father. It was Thanksgiving Day. And he shared with me about being sick and tired of being sick and tired. He shared with me about wanting to get clean. He shared with me about how he was so proud of me and what I've been able to do in my life. And this was a man that when I had 90 days clean, I gave him a call because I was so proud that I was clean. And my father told me that, oh, so now we're square? And I had to say, yeah, I guess so, Dad. I guess I'm square. You know, because I crossed that line. You know that invisible line that happens when somebody in the neighborhood changes a little and we could no longer be trusted? That was me. I was like I could no longer be trusted. And I did, all my life, I chased my father because I wanted, more than anything, was to feel accepted by him. And I've done some funky things in recovery in terms of my father because I wanted to be accepted by him. You know, and I did whatever it took, certainly when I was out there using, to be accepted by him. And when he called me on that Thanksgiving Day, and we talked for about 2 hours, and I told him the same thing that I would tell any other newcomer about going to a meeting and raising your hand as a newcomer and picking up a newcomer chip and all that stuff, you know. And December 13th of last year, my father celebrated a year clean. And I really believe that I was the example for him. My conversations with my father today are about the speakers that we hear, about the meetings we go to, about the step that we're working on, more me with steps. You know, my father's struggling with the idea of having to work the steps, but he's learning. And I'm learning that my father and I are learning about having a father and daughter relationship, and I really believe that the steps have taught me how to forgive him. Because when he called me that day and when he was ready to get clean, I was able and willing to give him everything I had because I truly forgave him. And what I was able to understand is that my father's an addict long before he's my father. And that if I had children when I was out there using, I would have done the same thing. Because I lived to use and used to live, bottom line. I didn't care about anybody. I didn't care about if I hurt you. I didn't care about the example I set. I didn't care about anything when I was out there using. And my father is, he's a gift. You know, the relationship that I have with him is a gift. And you know, I mean, that's what happens around here. We're able to restore relationships with our family, and we're able to restore, you know, resentments. We're able to do a lot of things. You know, it's not just getting clean and staying clean. There's a lot more that happens in these rooms than that. You know, I'm going to share a little bit about my mother. You know, my mom, I've had major struggles with my mother. My mother is a wonderful woman, and it took me many years to be able to say that. I was so angry and bitter at my mother. You know, I felt very abandoned by her. I felt very judged by her. And when I walked into the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, I had an incredible amount of anger. And it was really weird that I had more anger towards my mother than my father. And, you know, my mother and I, we have a friendship today. You know, it's not the relationship that I want with my mother, but it's the relationship I had. And what I had to understand is that I had to let go of the idea of being able to sip tea with my mother on, you know, Sunday afternoon or whatever. You know, it's like I had to let go of these fantasies that I had. You know, like I said, fantasy was my first drug of choice. And when I walked in here, I had a million fantasies about what life was supposed to be like, what people were supposed to be like, what relationships were like. I had no idea about reality and what truly was going on in life. I had no clue how to live life on life's terms. You know, and first I had to process the resentments that I had, and I've been able to do that. And now what I'm able to do is I'm able to be the best daughter that I possibly can be to my mother. And it's really ironic when I stop pointing the finger at what she does or what you do, I'm able to really internalize what I'm doing, and that's the only thing that I can truly change. I can't change you, I can only change me. And that's what I've been able to learn. And my relationship with my mother is very precious, and I'm very grateful that I have a friendship with her. You know, I'm very grateful for everything that I've received in this program. You know, it's very hard to speak in this room. You know where I really learned how to have a relationship and a friendship with my mother was with my sponsor. And I'm going to share a little bit about my sponsor.